Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you for coming to watch. So, I've got guys an update on some very active things that are going to be happening here across the central and eastern half of the United States. I've got you guys your morning forecast, as well as the latest information on this big winter storm that is currently visible on your screen. This has been dumping a lot of snow over portions of Tennessee, northern Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana. Believe it or not, the Deep South is getting in on some snow, and the snow will continue getting into the rest of this weekend. All right. So as we get started with this update, you can see that we've got a big swath of snow that's just racing through the eastern United States. As we get through this morning, you can see a lot of Tennessee is blanketed in that blue shade. That's signifying snow. Heavy snow, though. A few bands of heavy snow charging across northern Mississippi. All right, but uh, Memphis, Tennessee, or Memphis, Mississippi. I think that's Memphis, Tennessee. You guys are getting in on a lot of snow, but you can see Jonesboro, Arkansas. Snow has stopped for now, but I think that second man's going to come up on you guys pretty soon. Just want to talk about these cities out here, all right, that are yet to get hit. We've got Morristown. Nashville is waking up to some light to moderate snowfall. Cookville, Oak Ridge, Knoxville, all right, all those areas are seeing that snowfall. But if you're south of like Maryville and then closer to the North Carolina border of Tennessee, if you're right on the border, right now you're hanging on to just rainfall, all right? But you could start to see snow as far north as like areas of near Fredericksburg. Starting to rain in Richmond. I think this will stay as all rain for Richmond. But if you're up towards Harrisonburg, if you're in West Virginia, Winchester, all right, Cumberland, Maryland there. But any of these areas, I think, are yet to get hit by the system, and we will definitely see snow enter portions of the Northeast. All right, you've got some more snow action starting to show up here in the central United States. It's another piece of energy that's trying to phase with that other one that would cause more of a backside snowstorm to form. But this one's definitely losing intensity, but you can see it's already dropping some snow over portions of central Kansas into southern Nebraska, and then obviously over the Rockies, where it looks like we actually do have some snow squalls trying to form right here just to the south and east of Denver. All right, so we'll move on to our alerts here. And taking a look at our alerts, you can see we're very active. All right, things have definitely changed. All right, but in a bad way, I would say. So, for the northern United States, we'll start out with the just the more widespread alerts, wind chill warnings. We've expected that because we're pretty much not halfway because but we're definitely we're on our way through this stretch of definitely like widespread cold. This Arctic blast is here, and it looks like it could be historic. But you've got very cold temperatures out in the northern and central United States with wind chill warnings in this blue shade right around where my mouse is going from all of the Dakotas through Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, northern Texas. You've got eastern Colorado, eastern Wyoming, northern and eastern portions of Montana, and then you've got southern Minnesota, northern Illinois, northern Indiana, southern Michigan, northern Missouri. All right, so just a lot of big names coming out here that are under that wind chill warning. Wind chill advisories, though, are the surrounding areas right in this shade, like right here. That's where we still are very cold, and I think that some of these areas will be upgraded to a wind chill warning in the next coming days. But that's in the light blue shade going out for Michigan, or sorry, Arizona, Wisconsin, Minnesota, through Ohio, central Indiana, southern Illinois, central Missouri, and then down through eastern Oklahoma, and then the rest of central Texas. All right. Now, here's your winter storm that's moving through the deep south. This will be riding up through the I-95 corridor into the northeast. You could actually already see that we have winter storm warnings that were up since about yesterday morning. But that's in that pink shade. All of Tennessee, I believe, is under a winter storm warning. But you've got southern Arkansas, northern Louisiana, the Texarkana area. All right. But you've got winter storm warnings. This is not quite reaching to Dallas, but Dallas right now, Dallas-Fort Worth area is under a winter weather advisory. But you got a second area into southern Texas where you have winter storm warnings. All right, in this purple shade, which is interesting, but we do have hard freeze warnings. All right, or these yeah, I believe these are hard freeze warnings. Um, Going out for the deep south, and that's pretty interesting because the cold blast is going to be getting down here. It's more widespread up in the north, so it doesn't have a, it's just, kind of, it's coming in from the north with everybody seeing cold, not right away though. It like takes a little bit more of a longer time to get to that cold. But if you're down here in the south, the gradient becomes very, very sharp, and so you're going to go from 1 hour being at like 60, or today, because you got your winter storm, probably you're in like the 30s and 40s. Then you go down to the 20s. All right, but that's in that purple shade going from central and southern Alabama through Mississippi, and then Gulf Coast Louisiana and areas of southeastern Texas. All right, surrounding areas of these alerts in this purple shade, which is also going up all the way to southern New England, including New York City and Long Island at the moment. You've got winter weather advisories. These may get upgraded to winter storm watches for areas up towards New England and areas that are yet to get hit by the system. But this is going through New Jersey, PA, through Delmarva, and then into Virginia. And then this goes really just all around that these greater warnings of those winter storm warnings. All right, so that's pretty much all of your alerts. But in the Northwest, we're still hanging on to some winter storm watches, still some snow hanging around there, but I don't think that it's going to be more of a significant day for snow than what we saw yesterday, where we actually do have over 100,000 customers without power right now in Oregon, which is pretty bizarre. But yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, so we go on here to our temperatures here. I just wanted to take a look at what our temperatures are for today, and this is where you could actually really see well the status of that cold blast. At this point, it's made its way to the Gulf Coast, where we see below freezing temperatures. But this is your 32 degree line right here. That is very low. This is, I mean, if you were to ask me what is below average, all right, below average would probably be like through here. That's a big difference, guys. All right. But you can see we're waking up to temperatures getting down as low as negative 30 degrees in Montana. My gosh, and it's windy out there too. So when you put the wind and those freezing temperatures, those, like, that bone chilling temperatures together, you get dangerous wind chills, all right, and real field temperatures. But that's pretty much the same throughout the Midwest. And I just noticed this, but I'm looking for areas near Chicago getting down to maybe negative 20 degrees this morning. So 7 a.m. this morning has been a harsh one for the central United States, even into Kansas, where we're getting well below 0 degrees. Into Texas, we're in the single digits. And then farther south, we're still in the teens, but my gosh, this is going to be cold. We're finally below freezing in the Northeast. We're hanging on to, I wouldn't say below average or above average temperatures, but we are hanging on to the temperatures above 30 degrees for areas along the coastline. But the Southeast still hanging on to the 40s, and we'll switch this over to our high, which would be for 1 p.m. today. Well, actually, yeah, 1 p.m. today. So this is going to be a high temperature for today. And notice how you can still have warmth in the southeast, like the far southeast. That's because when you get a big Arctic blast like this, and you also have a ridge at the same time, it forces all that warm air in that ridging, which basically what's happening here is you have a lot of Gulf moisture that's trying to pump into that storm that's racing across the east. So because there's so much cold air blocking it, it's kind of being forced to pump into along the east coast. So that's gonna just bring more moisture up the eastern seaboard. But if you are by midday today behind that 32-degree line, all right, whatever form of precipitation comes in, it's most likely going to be snow. All right, but the Northeast is going to be in the teens and the 20s. And then for the high today, it's going to be like negative 15 degrees for areas in Montana. But Tennessee, the rest of the deep south, we're in the 20s. And look at this. Finally, the Gulf Coast, one area on the Gulf Coast is below freezing. So that's really my marker place where, I would say if a cold blast gets down to the Gulf Coast, that's a substantial cold blast. But we're going to be at a point tomorrow morning where temperatures may get down to negative 20, once again, negative 20 degrees in the Midwest, and then the rest of the north central United States is just going to be right on freezing throughout the rest of this week. So I don't want to get too carried off of this update here just on those temperatures. So we'll be moving on here to the southeastern United States where we have a big winter storm that's moving through. All right, we've got some major ice totals, major ice accumulations that are beginning, and we got to talk about the snow as well. All right, so this was a story 8 a.m. today. You had freezing rain, which was very heavy across southern Arkansas. That's been trying to change over to snowfall, but with the same intensity. But I am watching for maybe thundersleet in this area, which is pretty bizarre. But yes, there is such thing as thundersleet, which is basically it's a band of sleet that moves in, but in the form of a thunderstorm. So in the most intense and strongest events, you'll have lightning with that. I don't think you're gonna have lightning strikes, but you'll have lightning flashes, and you may even hear thunder. But that's what we're dealing with in the South, and you can see we're getting into 10 a.m. today. This is becoming a very intense winter storm. This is really we're getting to the midway point at this point. We have snow moving into the mountains of West Virginia through eastern Tennessee. Do we see snow in North Carolina? Maybe in the upper elevations of far western North Carolina towards the border of Tennessee. But I think that snow is just gonna stay to the north of this 540 line. All right, this 540 line marks where we go from being above 32 degrees to below 32 degrees. That's basically a marker showing where where the temperature is cold enough to snow. All right, but what we also do have is we have very heavy precipitation going on down here through Arkansas. I think Arkansas may be the hardest hit state out of this entire event, but you were waking up in Dallas. It was actually snowing in Dallas, I believe, but I think that's changing over to some thunder sleet or at least sleet. All right, we've got freezing rain, very heavy freezing rain to northern Mississippi. You've got northern Louisiana included in that area of sleet. So we take this out to about midday today. This really starts to just, kind of join into one line of precipitation. Now you're actually starting to see that heavy snow move into portions of southern Tennessee. And I think if we hang on to snow that's this heavy into Tennessee, you could definitely end up with a few more inches than anticipated. So I think Tennessee may be the lucky winner here for our totals, but it's starting to snow up into Delmarva. We'll talk about the regions up to the north a little bit later. All right, but you still got sleet on the backside of this down towards northern Alabama, northern Mississippi. All right, excuse me, Louisiana, and eastern Texas. And you know how we have those hard freeze warnings? So I think any precipitation that's on the ground, all right, while those freezing temperatures settle in, I think that all can freeze. So you're going to see dangerous ice accumulations if, let's say, you accumulate to about half an inch to an inch of sleet. All right, and some of this will be in the form of freezing rain. So there's a big chance for a big ice storm in the deep south getting into today. All right, and so we can see this really just continues to push off to the east. All right, and then you could start to see those more widespread snow, or I would say widespread, but more substantial snow, rather than in tiny pockets. We're seeing more, yeah, I like to call it substantial snow moving across northern Tennessee into Kentucky and then West Virginia. All right, we've got freezing rain inside of the sleet line moving across areas towards the Gulf. All right, and then this is, by the time we're getting to 7 p.m. today, all right, right after dinner time, you're starting to see this line start to break apart, but you're still going to be hanging on to snow into Virginia, areas of western Virginia, into West Virginia, and then you've got areas of eastern Kentucky seeing that snowfall. All right, but when will the most intense period of the storm will be? Well, I think right around 8 a.m. today, which we're past that, but 8 a.m. today, it's definitely going to be for that ice. That's going to be the most intense period for southern Arkansas and then into Mississippi. But when I think it's going to be right around 2 p.m. today where we're going to see just the heaviest precipitation overall, which most likely will be in the form of snow and sleet and freezing rain, all mixing together towards south central Tennessee. All right, but that moves on out. and that will take you to tomorrow morning. You're waking up tomorrow morning, and you still have a little bit, all right, a little bit of precipitation left over, which should be rainfall in the northwestern Georgia through Alabama, and then you also do have some thunderstorms that could be impacting portions of Florida today. These shouldn't be that loud. They shouldn't be anything crazy. So just some regular thunderstorms moving through, and then we're done with the storm. But just the rest of as we get into the afternoon hours of Tuesday. All right. So I don't know why I just clicked for sound there. All right. So we move on here to your snowfall totals. This is a big question that it's going to change a little bit, but I think the models are really narrowing down on this because this should be your forecast, guys. So, this is what we've got. We'll start out here down into Arkansas, where central Arkansas into eastern Arkansas, we're dealing with 1 to 2 inches of snow, and then northern Mississippi is where we could actually see maybe 2 to 4 inches. But if you're in central and southern Mississippi, I really wouldn't expect any snow, maybe some sleet and freezing rain, but that should be it. Then moving into Tennessee, where I think we're going to see the heaviest totals here. The NAM actually not in support of as much snow with that tiny pocket of heavier snow into southern Tennessee, but we can still see 4 to 6 inches in this dark blue shade. But here's your purple shades, where we could get maybe up to 10 inches of snow from now until the end of this event. But this is all the way out to off to the east towards southwestern Virginia, where we can really see the highest totals, maybe really 8 to 10 inches. All right. But even northern Tennessee, 2 to 4 inches, and then up into eastern Kentucky, where we could really go for 1 to 2 inches, but some areas will definitely see 2 to 4 inches. I apologize if I sound sick. I don't know what I'm coming up with. But it's just not been a great morning for me, health wise, I guess. All right, but if you're in West Virginia here, I think that if you're in the upper elevations, you'll get a pretty nice, few inches of snow. But everybody out here will definitely see 2 to 4 inches, and then if you're off to the south, all right, that's where you could maybe get up to 6 to 8 inches of snow, and somebody out here may even see 10 inches of snow. So that's certainly possible. All right. And then that snow, the substantial snow totals will continue off to the north and east, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. All right. So we look at your current projected ice accumulations here. This is both freezing rain, I would say, and sleet. All right, but you can definitely see that we're expecting a substantial ice storm, and we could be dealing with maybe up to half an inch of ice on these roadways, just right on the the three borders here of Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee, right where they meet. That's where we could be dealing with maybe half an inch of ice. That's just enough to cause big time power outages. That's good. That's going to cause widespread power outages. It's going to cause branches and trees to break, and those power lines are going to be weighed down. So we may have widespread travel disruptions. I'm expecting that there will be accidents here on those roadways. And this ice, you can see the signal for anywhere from a quarter of an inch of ice, maybe even more, through areas of extreme eastern Tennessee. So please watch that, especially if you're in extreme northeastern Miss Alabama. Just stay off those roadways, stay home, and be ready for power outages. Just have a plan ready for possible power outages getting into today. But you can see southern Alabama, Georgia may end up with a little bit over a tenth of an inch of ice, but you can see central Alabama right around a tenth of an inch to 2/10 of an inch of ice, and then same thing down to south central Mississippi. All right. So that was your ice totals with that system for the southeast. Now we look at the northeast. All right, what's gonna be happening on the backside of that? Or sorry, what's gonna be happening beyond the southeast with this system? Well, just take a look at what we've got going on right now. All right, you've got very cold temperatures settling in. We saw it on the temperature map. Waking up today, everybody was below freezing. Right below that, everybody's behind that 540 line except for the Outer Banks in North Carolina. But there will be some ridging with that system as it comes up. So you may be thinking, oh no, it's not going to snow for areas like that haven't seen snow in a long time, like New York City and DC. Well, I think it's probably going to stay as all snow, but it's just not going to be long enough, and it's not going to be intense enough to see the big snowfall totals. But here we go. We'll take this to noon today. So right around where we are now. This is where we are now. All right, you've got snow creeping up through West Virginia and Virginia. It's probably going to start snowing in areas of extreme western Maryland into southern Pennsylvania by around lunchtime today, and then this is moving up into the southern New England, and by 6 p.m. we may start to see snow enter DC. This may come in as rain and freezing rain in DC, but I think that this will come in as snow. This will be light to moderate, but there's a heavier band coming up behind it. Now, 6 p.m., we may see snow start to enter areas as far north as New York City and Long Island. Right, but the name is not picking up on that yet. All right, but it's still snowing in DC, but it's starting to lift off to the north a little bit, and you may stay as snow if you're very lucky. It's very close. You're not close to the line of snow and rain, that dividing line. It's just the dividing line of no precipitation and snow. All right, but it's going to start to snow more substantially into southern New Jersey and then up into Long Island by late night hours of tonight, but it's snowing very hard into northern Virginia. It's snowing just really. There's a lot of moderate snow going around here of southern PA, and then a lot of New Jersey is going to see that snow. But this moves up into southern New England, and then by the middle of the night tonight into tomorrow, we're going to probably see the heaviest snow enter portions of the Mid Atlantic. Now getting into Pennsylvania, New Jersey, all of southern New York State, including Long Island and New York City. But we'll take this through the rest of tonight. We'll take this to early morning hours of tomorrow morning. If you wake up early enough, I know some of you may wake up or very early tomorrow morning. If you're one of those persons, if you're one of those people that wake up at like 6 a.m. on weekdays, all right, if you're in New York City or anywhere in southern New England, you may be waking up to some flurries. All right, it may be snowing still. It probably will be snowing in Boston, all of Massachusetts, southern New England in general. But notice this freezing rain and this ice starting to show up here for Delmarva. I think that after the overnight hours of tonight into tomorrow morning, I think a little bit of that snow may change over to freezing rain for areas through central and southern New Jersey, down through DC, and then into Virginia. And this may enter Long Island, and we can actually see Long Island and New York City right in the middle of that area. That may end up with some ice accumulations. We'll talk about that in a bit. All right, but snow farther north. All right, I don't think we're going to change over to rain for areas of southern New England unless you're in extreme eastern portions of Long Island, and then if you're into areas of southeastern Mass. All right, but this is moving through southern New England. That freezing rain and ice continues to persist. Now moving into Rhode Island, and then eventually this moves with the system. All right, but notice how we see the system really, it just gets a lot bigger, and we see the more widespread snow finally start to come into play, but that's going to be for areas up towards Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire, and this is by middle of the day Tuesday. We're going to still be dealing with freezing precipitation in southern New England, but if you're in northern New England, up towards Maine, you may be dealing with heavy snow getting into Tuesday night. Look at all this heavy snow moving through areas of Maine here. This will be moving through with that low. All right, but this will certainly bring up those totals, and I do think by tomorrow or maybe even later today, we will have winter storm warnings up for this area. But that moves out, and then you're left with just very cold and dry weather. All right, so we'll talk about snowfall totals first. All right, so totals have increased in some areas, totals have decreased. All right, but if we'll talk about DC right now, DC is very close. I would say 2 to 4 inches right now, but if you're just to the north of there, into areas of northern Maryland, or sorry, northern Maryland. All right, there is a chance for maybe 4 to 6 inches of snow, and that's definitely enough to maybe even cause some schools to close. I think it's unlikely, all right, but it's remaining as a possibility. But Northern Virginia, 2 to 4 inches, and you could see it's nothing that's really any like it's nothing that really catches your eye, but it's definitely substantial for especially for areas along the I-95 corridor. Because notice how I'm right over New York City, 3 inches of snow. This storm is set to snap the inch of snow just dry spell. I think that New York City may end up with 2 to 4 inches of snow as we get through the system. But if, let's say, we see a heavier band set up in this area, or we see that snow shift a little bit farther south, all right, that means you can see any of these totals out here into areas of southeastern PA, northern New Jersey. They could shift into Long Island and New York City, but we're going for about 2 to 4 inches in Long Island. But if Philadelphia, I would say 4 to 6 inches. What you could expect, some areas may see, up to 6 inches around there. All right. But you can see even central and northern PA dealing with about 2 to 4 inches. Same thing for upstate New York. All right, but if you go into even if you go into Rhode Island, Connecticut, you're still dealing with 2 to 4 inches until you get to northern sections uh of Massachusetts, where you could deal with 4 to 6 inches. Boston right now going for about 2 inches of snow. All right, but yes, this is going to be just a more of a widespread that everybody sees snow kind of situation here for the Northeast, rather than the interior Northeast seeing the big time totals. I think this one's on the coastline, but sadly, it's not going to be you know a a total blowout here with our snow totals. I mean, I know some people don't want that, and really we shouldn't want that because that can cause big problems. But for winter weather lovers, I think that this will be a nice event. All right, but it's not going to be anything that you guys haven't seen out here, and obviously nothing I haven't seen. But I'll be watching this, see for any changes. Also in the forecast, and obviously alerts posted by the National Weather Service. All right. But yes, it looks like things will get active here with our snow. And then I really do think that the area to watch for the highest totals will probably be in between areas in New Jersey through Delmarva and then around Philadelphia, that's where we will expect 2 to 6 inches. But somebody out there is going to get maybe 6 to 8 inches. We'll see we'll see what happens with that. All right, but we look at our ice totals now. Ice accumulations, they're looking pretty nasty here for Rhode Island especially. We saw how the NAM was pushing that freezing rain line up through southern New England. Well, here it is. And we're talking about maybe, you know, up to 3/10 of an inch of ice. And we're getting over a quarter of an inch of ice for areas of Rhode Island. This is up towards Boston and eastern Massachusetts, going through southern extremely southeastern Connecticut. That's where it could be right around a quarter of an inch of ice going through Long Island. New York City right now is going for about a tenth of an inch of ice, but that's enough to cause some localized power outages. Definitely some tricky roadways though. I think that really, if you are in New York City, just stay at home. Try to stay off those roadways because they will be slippery and it's very busy out there. All right, especially during the nighttime hours. So there will be accidents if we see, especially if we see these ice accumulations overperform. All right, which there's still a chance for that, but it's decreasing. But if you go through northern Delaware and then into northeastern Maryland, we're still dealing with about right around 2/10 of an inch of ice going through New Jersey as well. All right, but yeah, I think everybody in that purple shade definitely has a chance for sagging tree branches. All right, some localized power outages and just some big time travel disruptions and delays. All right, so that was your winter storm that we're dealing with right now. What's happening behind it? Well, we're going to be talking about that right now. So I'm not watching any big systems other than another potential snow threat for the Northeast, but I think we're going to enter a more quiet period of weather, but meaning that the storms aren't going to be as intense as what we saw, last week. I mean, last week, guys, last week was just so crazy that we probably had like 3 blizzards coming. We had one the weekend getting into last week, then we had the one midweek last week, and then obviously we had that blizzard that just moved out. But wow, was it very active. And you know that's that first system coming through, and we'll see what happens behind it. We're left with that big Arctic plunge, this big dip in the jet stream. But you've got high pressure blocking, moving right with that cold air. But notice you've got a low and a big system moving down from the northwest, and here it comes. It's trying to form a it's trying to form an East Coast low. We're not getting far out at all. We're only 90 hours out, and we've been watching. I've been watching a winter storm threat for the Northeast, and this would be bringing snow along the I-95 coastline as well. This would be a nor'easter, and this does bring some snow for areas along the I-95 corridor. You've got very high pressure. This would probably bring some very cold temperatures down through the eastern United States, because you have an upper level high here, just very high pressure. That's really stabilizing that cold air. It's going to be strengthening the cold air. Whenever you have strong high pressure stabilized with that cold air is just going to have more room to fill in those areas that weren't exactly seeing the coldest air down here in the south. But this will just all this cold air will just become more intense as we get through the rest of this week. Now again, this is Saturday of next week, so this is about a week out. All right, just under a week out. We'll maybe be talking about some very cold temperatures in the Northeast. I think that this will definitely come into play, and I think we're gonna have to start talking about that second system coming up behind all this. All right, so here comes this little bit of a warm air. All right, you're starting to see a little bit more of ridging, and I think the pattern here might break apart, where we're going to see a little bit more of that warmth start to enter the country. Because notice how we go from extreme cold, all right, getting very far south, to a little bit more widespread warm air. All right. But what happens behind it? Well, we've seen another system trying to form, but there's just too much warm air for snow, and so you get an all-rain event that just brings kind of rounds of moisture through the south. You can see 1, 2, 3 rounds of moisture. I'm watching for maybe some thunderstorm events in the south in the coming days. All right, but I'm really not seeing anything. I'm not tracking anything that's too substantial on this, guys. I know the GFS is showing it right now. All right, but this is so far out that this is not even going to happen. We're not going to see a storm that's going to be looking like this. This will change. We're probably not even going to see a storm at all at this point. But we actually do get a system that moves into the northeast behind with more cold air. All right. So, for the final part of the update, I just want to look at these are your current projected wind chill. Wind chills right here. So this is basically how cold the wind is making temperatures feel. I want to start in Montana. Negative 43 degrees. Guys, this is life-threatening cold, getting all the way down through the Midwest into the south central United States, where we're below 0 degrees. But not only your current temperatures, your regular temperatures, but also these wind chills. This is how cold it's going to feel. And we could just see this pushes off to the east. And we saw on the GFS how it wanted to bring more cold air intensity into the eastern United States. We could actually see right here in the interior northeast, it could actually get down below 0 degrees, moving behind that next system coming up. But notice how that warm air starts to slowly creep up through the southeast. But guys, it's just going to be very, very cold for another long period of time. And at this point, we may, right around now, this is probably going to be the most intense portion of our our event here. We may be feeling like negative 50 degrees for areas of the Dakotas into Montana. That's just crazy, guys. Please stay heated. Just don't go outside. It's too cold to go outside. You're going to get frostbite, hypothermia. All right, it's just too cold to escape that cold air, and stay warm if you're outside. But it's still going to be very cold inside. Just make sure you got blankets, candles. If you have a fireplace, make sure that's up and going. All right, but just use any way to stay warm. All right, but just try. It's also dangerous. The fire hazard. It's very possible that there will be house fires. All right, because people are just going to be trying to stay warm so much with so many different ways, and that always causes a risk, at least a slightly elevated risk for fire. But notice how up towards where the polar vortex is, you've got very these are very intense. This is very intense cold air that's knocking on the northeastern United States door. All right, it's very close. You can see we're very close to that big time cold, but I don't think it's going to spill in, and we're getting pretty far out, so we don't know what's going to happen exactly in this point, and it struggles to get farther south because of all this warm air that's entering the southern United States. All right, so that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for coming to watch. We'll see you guys in the next video. So I may have an update later tonight, probably not. I just wanted to get one in the morning and see how the algorithm is for me in the morning. But yeah, just stay safe with that system. We'll continue to watch and move through the southeast and the northeast. Stay safe, stay warm with that cold air. I know it's looking pretty scary, but just make sure that you're staying warm in the best way possible, and that you're obviously not creating a fire hazard risk. And so I hope you guys do well with those snow totals if you're in the way of that system moving through the eastern United States. And as always, I'll keep you guys updated and posted on whatever happens weather-wise across the country. So thank you all for coming to watch this video, and I'll see you guys